The twin suns of Nexus Station cast harsh shadows across the bustling marketplace as Jackson Reed wiped sweat from his weathered brow. His water stall occupied a modest corner between a spice merchant and a weapons dealer, the perfect spot for observing the endless stream of alien traders and travelers. At 52 years old, Jackson had the kind of face that told stories without words. Deep lines etched around his brown eyes spoke of years under different suns, while his calloused hands moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned to survive in hostile environments. The marketplace thrummed with activity as creatures from across the galaxy haggled over goods. Jackson's water purification system hummed quietly behind his simple wooden counter, producing the cleanest drinking water this side of the Centauri system. He took pride in his work, even if it was far from the life he once knew. The clear liquid represented something pure in a universe that had shown him too much darkness. Flash of silver caught his attention as a woman approached his stall. She moved with fluid grace, her metallic skin shimmering under the artificial lighting. Zara Voss was unmistakably Altarian, with the distinctive violet eyes and elongated features of her people. Her diplomatic robes marked her as someone of importance, yet she walked alone through the rough marketplace without fear. Something about her confident stride and the way she carried herself reminded Jackson of warriors he had once known. "Water, please," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of Altarian speech. "The cleanest you have." Jackson nodded, reaching for one of his premium bottles. "This is filtered through 7 stages and enhanced with minerals from the Kepler colonies. It will serve you well in this heat." As he handed her the bottle, their fingers brushed briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, and he noticed her violet eyes widen slightly. For a moment, neither moved, caught in an instant of connection that transcended species boundaries. The moment shattered as heavy footsteps approached. 3 Krillian warriors stomped toward the stall, their reptilian features twisted with malice. The largest, standing nearly 7 feet tall, with mottled green skin and razor-sharp claws, fixed his yellow eyes on Jackson with obvious contempt. His armor bore the markings of a battle commander, though Jackson doubted he had earned his rank through skill rather than brutality. "Look what we have here," the leader hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. A pathetic human selling water like a common peasant. How the mighty have fallen. Jackson's expression remained neutral, though his body language shifted. Subtly. "Just trying to make an honest living, friends. Nothing more." The Krillian laughed, a harsh sound that made other merchants step back. "Friends? You think we are friends, Waterboy?" He swept his massive arm across the counter, sending several bottles crashing to the ground. The precious liquid splashed across the metal decking, immediately absorbed by the station's recycling systems. Zara stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident in her calm demeanor. "Gentlemen, surely there is no need for this aggression. This merchant has done nothing to provoke you." The Krillian commander turned his attention to her, and Jackson felt his muscles tense. "Ah, an Altarian diplomat. How delightful. Perhaps you can explain to your new friend here why humans should not be permitted to conduct business in our sector. The trade regulations clearly state that all sentient species have equal commerce rights," Zara replied evenly. "Your actions constitute harassment under Galactic law." The Krillian's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Galactic law means nothing here, silver skin. This is Krillian territory now." He raised his clawed hand threateningly toward Zara. Jackson moved faster than seemed possible for a man his age. One moment he was behind his counter, the next he was standing between Zara and the Krillian, his weathered hand gripping the alien's wrist with surprising strength. "I believe the lady asked you to leave," he said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made the other warriors step back involuntarily. The commander tried to pull free, but Jackson's grip was like iron. For several, Seconds, they stared at each other, and something passed between them. Recognition flickered in the Krillian's eyes, followed quickly by uncertainty. He had seen that look before, in the eyes of apex predators who had learned to hide their true nature. "This is not over, water merchant," the commander growled, finally, yanking his arm free. "We will remember this insult." The three warriors retreated, but not before shooting venomous glares at both humans. Zara watched them go, then turned to Jackson with newfound respect. That was either very brave or very foolish. Jackson began collecting the unbroken bottles, his movements betraying nothing of the adrenaline coursing through his system. Sometimes they are the same thing. He looked up at her, noting the intelligence in her violet eyes. "You should be careful, Miss Voss. The Krillians do not forgive perceived slights easily." "You know who I am," she observed, not really a question. "Altarian diplomatic attached to the Nexus Council," he replied, continuing his cleanup. "Your reputation precedes you." He paused, studying her face. "The question is, what brings someone of your standing to a simple water vendor's stall?" Zara smiled, and Jackson felt something stir in his chest that had been dormant for years. "Perhaps I was simply thirsty," she said, taking a sip from her bottle. "Or perhaps I was curious about a man who can afford to stand up to Krillian warriors." Without flinching, their eyes met again, and this time neither looked away. In that moment, surrounded by the chaos of the marketplace, two souls from different worlds found something unexpected in each other. The connection was immediate and undeniable, a spark that promised to ignite into something much more powerful. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" Jackson asked, surprising himself with his boldness. "I have a small place above the shop. Nothing fancy, but the view of the nebula is spectacular." Zara's smile widened, transforming her already beautiful features into something luminous. "I would like that very much," Jackson read. As the marketplace began to quiet with the approach of the station's artificial night cycle, neither of them noticed the Krillian warriors watching from the shadows, their leaders, eyes burning with hatred and the promise of revenge. Jackson's quarters above the water stall were modest but comfortable, with large windows that offered a breathtaking view of the Andromeda Nebula. The space was clean and functional, with few personal touches except for a small collection of books, and a single photograph turned face down on the table. Zara noticed these details as she explored the room, her diplomat's training making her naturally observant. "You live simply," she commented, running her fingers along the smooth surface of his reading tablet. "Most humans I have met prefer more elaborate accommodations." Jackson activated his small food synthesizer, programming it for a meal suitable for both human and Altarian dietary requirements. "Simple is safer," he replied, his back to her. "Fewer things to lose when you have to move quickly." The synthesizer hummed to life, filling the room with the aroma of spiced vegetables and protein. Zara moved closer to him, drawn by something she could not quite name. "You speak as if you have experience with running." He turned to face her, and for a moment his careful mask slipped. She saw pain in his brown eyes, old wounds that had never quite healed. "Everyone runs from something eventually," he said softly. "The trick is knowing when to stop." Their meal was simple but delicious, and as they ate, Zara found herself studying Jackson's hands. They were not the hands of a water merchant. Scars crisscrossed his knuckles, and his fingers moved with the precise control of someone trained in combat. When he reached for his drink, she noticed how his eyes automatically swept the room, checking exits and potential threats. "You, military," she said suddenly. "Special forces, from the look of you." Jackson's hand paused halfway to his mouth. "What makes you say that?" "The way you move. The way you watch everything around you. The way you positioned yourself between me and them. Those Krillians without thinking." She leaned forward, her violet eyes intense. I have worked with enough soldiers to recognize the signs. He set down his fork, his expression growing distant. That was a long time ago. I am just a water vendor now. But you were not always. She pressed gently. What happened? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then slowly, he reached for the face-down photograph on the table. With careful fingers, he turned it over, revealing the image of a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile. Her name was Elena, he said quietly. She was a civilian contractor on Kepler 7. We were going to be married after my tour ended. Zara felt her heart clench at the pain in his voice. What happened to her? Krillian raiders attacked the colony while I was on assignment. By the time I got back, ... He closed his eyes, the memory still raw after all these years. There was nothing left but ash and regret. Without thinking, Zara reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. Her silver skin was cool against his warmth, but the contact sent electricity through both of them. I am sorry, she whispered. He looked down at their joined hands, then back to her face. I spent 5 years hunting down every Krillian involved in that raid. They called me the Ghost Walker, because I could move through their defenses like smoke. His voice was barely above a whisper. I killed them all, Zara. Every single one. She did not pull her hand away, despite the darkness she heard in his confession. And then? And then I realized I had become the very thing I was fighting against. A killer with no purpose except revenge. He turned his hand over, intertwining their fingers. So I walked away, found the most remote posting I could, and started. Over. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Outside the window, the nebula painted the darkness in shades of purple and gold. Zara studied Jackson's face, seeing not the killer he claimed to be, but a man who had found his way back to something resembling peace. You chose to give life instead of taking it, she said finally. That takes more courage than killing ever did. He looked at her with surprise, as if he had expected condemnation instead of understanding. You are not afraid of me? Should I be? She asked, her thumb tracing small circles on his skin. You protected me today. You choose to help people survive instead of helping them die. Whatever you were before, you are not that man anymore. The intensity of her gaze made his breath catch. He had not felt this kind of connection with anyone since Elena had not believed. He was capable of it, but Zara was different. She saw his darkness and chose to focus on the light he was trying to rebuild. You are remarkable, he said, his voice rough with emotion. As are you, she replied, and then she was moving around. The table, drawn by a force she could not resist. They came together slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might shatter. When their lips met, it was like the collision of two stars, burning away years of loneliness and pain. Zara tasted like starlight and hope, while Jackson grounded her with his strength and quiet determination. The kiss deepened, and she felt his arms encircle her, pulling her closer until there was no space between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Zara rested her forehead against his, their eyes locked in silent communication. I should go, she whispered, though she made no move to leave. You should, he agreed, his hand still holding her close. But I hope you will not. Before she could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. The harsh wail cut through the intimate moment like a blade, and both of them tensed. Jackson's training kicked in immediately, his body shifting into combat readiness as he moved to check the security monitors. What is it? Zara asked, though she already suspected she knew. The screen showed the marketplace below, where a full squad of Krillian warriors had surrounded his water stall. Their leader, the same commander from earlier, was shouting orders while his troops took positions. But these were not the same 3 warriors from before. This was a hunting party, armed and armored for war. "They have come for you," Zara said, her diplomatic mind already working through the implications. "This is about more than harassment, is it not?" Jackson's expression had gone completely cold, and for the first time, Zara caught a glimpse of the ghost walker he had once been. "Commander Thane," he said quietly, "I killed his brother on Kepler-7. The pieces clicked into place in Zara's mind. He recognized you, and now he wants revenge." Jackson moved to a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a cache of weapons that spoke of careful preparation. "I should have known this day would come eventually." As he began selecting equipment with practiced efficiency, Zara felt fear grip her heart. Not for herself, but for this man who had just begun to find peace again. "We could run," she suggested. "My ship is docked in the diplomatic bay." He paused, looking at her with an expression that mixed longing with resignation. "Running would only delay the inevitable, and it would put you in danger." He reached for a weapon she did not recognize, checking its power cell with automatic precision. "I will not let that happen." "Then I will stand with you," she said firmly. "No." The word came out sharper than he intended. "You are a diplomat, Zara. Your death would start a war between our species." "And your death would leave me alone," she replied, moving to stand beside him. "I am not leaving you to face this alone." Their eyes met, and in that moment, both understood that something fundamental had changed between them. What had started as attraction had become something deeper, something worth fighting for. The ghost walker might be awakening, but he would not be walking alone into the darkness. The sound of boots on metal echoed through the corridors as Krillian warriors spread throughout the lower levels of the station. Jackson moved with fluid precision, securing his apartment and preparing for what he knew would be a deadly confrontation. His hands worked automatically, checking weapons and planning escape routes, while his mind focused on keeping Zara safe. "There is a service tunnel that leads to the diplomatic quarter," he said, pulling up schematics on his wall display. "If we move now, we can reach your ship before they establish a perimeter." Zara watched him work, noting how completely he had transformed. The gentle water merchant had vanished, replaced by something altogether more dangerous. His movements were economical and precise, each action serving a specific purpose. This was the Ghost Walker, the legendary operative who had once been the most feared human in the galaxy. "How many brothers did Commander Thane have?" she asked quietly. Jackson's hands stilled on his equipment. "3. I killed 2 on Kepler-7, and 1 more on Vega Station a year later." He looked at her, his eyes hard as flint. "Thane was off-world when I hit their base. He has been hunting me ever since. And now he has found you." Zara moved closer, her silver skin seeming to glow in the dim light. "But you are not the same man who killed his brothers." "No," he agreed, his voice softening as he looked at her. "That man would have already gone down there to end this. He would not have hesitated to spill blood on a civilian station." He reached out, cupping her face in his scarred hands. "But that man never had someone worth protecting." The tenderness in his voice made her heart race. She covered his hands with hers, feeling the strength and gentleness warring within him. "Then we protect each other," she said simply. Before he could respond, the lights cut out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Through the windows, they could see armed figures moving through the marketplace. Below, their weapons casting eerie shadows in the artificial night. "They are jamming the station's communications," Jackson observed, checking his scanner. "Professional work. Thane has brought his team." A new sound reached them through the walls. The hiss of cutting torches. The Krillians were not waiting for them to come down. They were coming up. "The service tunnel," Zara said urgently. "We need to move now." Jackson nodded, but as they reached the hidden panel that concealed the tunnel entrance, explosions rocked the building. The walls shook, and debris rained down from the ceiling. Through the chaos, they could hear the distinctive roar of Krillian war cries. They are not just coming up, Jackson realized grimly. They are coming from all directions. The tunnel entrance was blocked by fallen debris, sealing off their escape route. Zara felt a moment of panic, but Jackson's calm presence steadied her. Even trapped, he radiated confidence and control. "New plan," he said, moving to his weapons. "Cash, we make our stand here." "Against how many?" Zara asked, though she was already moving to help him prepare their defenses. Thane brought at least 2 squads, maybe more. He handed her a small but powerful energy pistol. "Do you know how to use this?" She checked the weapon with practiced efficiency. Altarian diplomatic training includes combat instruction. "I am." "Not helpless." A smile ghosted across his lips. "Good, because I have a feeling we are going to need every advantage we can get." The cutting sounds grew closer, and they could hear voices through the walls. Jackson positioned himself near the main entrance, while Zara took cover behind his reinforced dining table. The apartment that had felt cozy and intimate just minutes before now felt like a fortress under siege. "Jackson," she said softly, and he turned to look at her. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that I do not regret coming here tonight." "Neither do I," he replied, and the warmth in his voice contrasted sharply with the cold steel of his weapon. "You gave me something I thought I had lost forever." "What is that?" "A reason to live instead of just survive." The wall exploded inward, and Krillian warriors poured through the breach. Jackson moved like liquid death, his body flowing from target to target with deadly precision. Each shot was perfectly placed, each movement calculated to maximize efficiency, while minimizing exposure. This was not the clumsy brutality of the Krillians, but the refined lethality of a master craftsman. Zara found herself mesmerized by his fluid grace, even as she fired at targets of her own. He was beautiful in his violence, a dancer whose steps spelled death for his enemies. She understood now why the Ghost Walker had been so feared across the galaxy. This was not just skill, but artistry. The first wave fell within seconds, but more warriors were already climbing through the breach. Jackson rolled behind cover, reloading with movements too quick to follow. "Second wave," he called out to Zara. "They are probing our defenses." She nodded, her violet eyes bright with adrenaline. "How many more?" "Thane is not stupid. He will keep sending them until we run out of ammunition or make a mistake." He paused, listening to the sounds from below. "But he wants me alive. That gives us an advantage." "How so?" "He will not risk destroying the entire apartment, and he will not use his heavy weapons as long as you are here." His eyes met hers across the room. "Your diplomatic status is protecting us both." The second wave was larger and more coordinated. The Krillians had learned from the first assault, using cover and suppression fire to advance. But Jackson adapted. Instantly, his tactics flowing like water around their strategies. He seemed to anticipate their moves before they made them, always one step ahead of their coordinated assault. Zara watched him work, understanding finally what he had tried to tell her. This was not just a man who had been a soldier. This was a weapon forged in the fires of loss and tempered by years of deadly experience. Yet even as he fought with lethal efficiency, she could see the pain in his eyes. Every shot he fired carried the weight of his past, every kill another step away from the peace he had tried to build. When the second wave fell, silence descended once more. Smoke drifted through the apartment, and the acrid smell of ozone filled the air. Jackson checked his ammunition, his expression grim. "We cannot keep this up forever," he said quietly. "Thane knows that." "Then what do we do?" Zara asked, reloading her own weapon. Jackson looked at her for a long moment, and she saw a decision forming in his eyes. "We take the fight to them," He said, "The ghost walker does not wait for death to come to him. He goes hunting." Before she could protest, he was moving toward the breach in the wall. Zara followed, her heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. They were leaving their fortress, stepping into the darkness where Commander Thane and his remaining warriors waited. But as they descended into the maze of corridors and maintenance shafts, Zara realized something important. She was not following a killer into battle. She was following a protector, a man who had found something worth fighting for again. The ghost walker might be awakening, but he walked now in the service of love rather than vengeance. The hunt was about to begin. The maintenance corridors beneath the marketplace were a maze of pipes, conduits, and narrow passages that wound through the station's superstructure. Jackson moved through them like a shadow, his years of training allowing him to navigate the cramped spaces with silent efficiency. Behind him, Zara followed with surprising grace, her diplomat's poise serving her well in the confined environment. "Thane will expect us to run," Jackson whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the station systems. "He has positioned his forces to drive us toward the docking bays. Instead, we circle back and hit them from behind." Zara nodded, her violet eyes bright with determination. She had discovered something about herself in the past hour. She was not content to be protected. Her diplomatic training had included combat instruction, but more than that, she found herself energized by the danger. Fighting alongside Jackson felt natural, as if they had been partners for years, rather than having just met. They reached a junction where several corridors converged, and Jackson held up a hand for silence. Through the metal grating above them, they could hear the heavy footsteps of Krillian patrol. The aliens were methodically searching each level, their discipline impressive despite their earlier losses. "Professional soldiers," Jackson observed quietly, "not the thugs from the marketplace." "Thane's personal guard," Zara confirmed. "I recognize their formation pattern from intelligence briefings. These are veterans of the border wars." Jackson's expression darkened. Then they know what they are dealing with. He checked his weapon, his movements automatic and precise. The Ghost Walker earned his reputation fighting Krillian death squads. They will not underestimate us. A new sound reached them, the distinctive whine of heavy weapons being powered up. Through the grating, they could see the blue glow of plasma, charges building in the barrels of military-grade rifles. The Krillians were no longer concerned with taking prisoners. "They have changed tactics," Zara said, her voice tight with concern. "Thane has decided that revenge is more important than capturing you alive." "Good," Jackson replied, and there was something cold in his voice that made her shiver. "That means I do not have to hold back anymore." He moved to a different grating, one that provided access to the storage area behind the weapons dealer's stall. With practiced efficiency, he began working on the locking mechanism. "When we go up, stay behind me and watch the flanks. These warriors are good, but they are not used to fighting on a civilian station. We can use that against them." The lock clicked open, and Jackson lifted the grating slowly, listening for any sign that their position had been detected. The storage area was dark and cluttered with shipping containers, providing excellent cover for their purposes. He helped Zara up, noting how her silver skin seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making her almost invisible in the shadows. "You are full of surprises," he murmured, his hand lingering on her arm longer than necessary. "I could say the same about you," she replied, her voice soft but steady. "The way you move, the way you think tactically. This is not just training, is it? This is who you are." He looked at her for a moment, seeing understanding in her violet eyes. "I tried to bury the Ghost Walker, but some things cannot be forgotten. They can only be redirected." "Then redirect it," she said, moving closer until they were almost touching. Use what you are to protect what matters. The intensity of her gaze made his breath catch. In the middle of a war zone, surrounded by enemies who wanted him dead, he found himself overwhelmed by feelings he had thought were buried with Elena. But this was different. Elena had loved the man he was trying to become. Zara loved the man he actually was, darkness and awe. "Zara," he began, but she silenced him. With a finger to his lips. "Later," she whispered. "After we survive this." The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment, and they both turned toward the storage area entrance. 3 Krillian warriors entered cautiously, their weapons sweeping the space in professional arcs. They moved with the coordination of a team that had fought together for years, communicating through hand signals and micro-expressions. Jackson struck first, emerging from behind a shipping container like a specter. His knife found the throat of the lead warrior before the alien could react, the blade sliding between armor plates with surgical precision. The second warrior turned, bringing his rifle to bear, but Zara was already moving. Her energy pistol discharged twice, the shots perfectly placed to disable rather than kill. The third warrior roared a battle cry and charged, his massive frame seeming to fill the storage area. Jackson flowed around his attack, using the alien's momentum against him. A quick strike to the nerve cluster at the base of his skull, and the warrior dropped like a stone. "Efficient," Zara observed, checking to make sure the area was clear. But they were just the advanced scout. "The main force will be here soon." "Then we move," Jackson said, already planning their next position. The weapons dealer's stall has a clear sight line to the main corridor. We can ambush Thane's forces as they approach. They moved through the storage area, gathering additional equipment and ammunition. The weapons dealer had been well stocked, and Jackson selected items with the eye of a professional. Military-grade explosives, advanced targeting systems, and a sniper rifle that would give them reach across the entire marketplace. "You know," Zara said as they worked, "most first dates do not involve quite this much violence." Despite the danger, Jackson found himself smiling. "I will try to do better next time." "Next time," she repeated, and there was promise in her voice. I liked the sound of that. The sound of multiple footsteps echoed through the marketplace, and they both tensed. Through the weapons dealer's display window, they could see Krillian warriors taking positions throughout the area. Commander Thane stood in the center, his massive frame encased in powered armor that spoke of serious military hardware. "Personal energy shields," Jackson observed, studying the enemy formation through his scope. "And those are not standard issue. Weapons. Thane has been planning this for a long time." "Can we take them?" Zara asked, though she already knew the answer from his expression. "Not in a straight fight," he admitted. "But we do not need to win. We just need to survive long enough to reach your ship." "And how do we do that?" Jackson's smile was sharp and predatory. "We remind them why they used to fear the Ghost Walker." He began setting up his equipment with the precision of a master craftsman. Each piece had a purpose, each position chosen for maximum tactical advantage. Zara watched him work, understanding that she was seeing something few people had ever witnessed. The Ghost Walker in his element, preparing for the kind of battle that had made him a legend. "When I start shooting," he said quietly, "you make for the service corridor behind the spice merchant's stall. It leads directly to the diplomatic quarter." "I am not leaving you," she said firmly. "Zara, no." Her voice carried the authority of someone used to command. "We started this together, and we will finish it together. Besides," she added with a slight smile, "you are going to need someone to watch your back." Their eyes met, and Jackson saw the same determination that had driven him through years of impossible missions. She was not just beautiful and intelligent. She was a warrior in her own right, someone who understood the cost of fighting for what mattered. "Together then," he said, and meant it. The battle for Nexus Station was about to begin. The marketplace erupted in chaos as Jackson's first shot echoed through the station. Commander Thane's energy shield flared blue-white as the sniper round struck it, the impact sending the massive Krillian staggering backward. His roar of rage filled the air as he raised his weapon, searching for the source of the attack. Ghost Walker. Thane's voice boomed across the marketplace. Show yourself, coward. Face me like a warrior. Jackson had already moved, his position shifting before the echoes of his shot had faded. Years of training had taught him never to fire twice from the same location. Beside him, Zara provided covering fire, her shots precise and deadly as she targeted the Krillian warriors attempting to flank their position. He is trying to draw you out, she observed, reloading with practiced efficiency. This is personal for him. Good, Jackson replied, lining up his next shot. Emotional enemies make mistakes. The second shot took down Thane's lieutenant, the round finding the gap between his armor plates with surgical precision. The remaining warriors scattered, seeking cover behind the marketplace stalls. But Jackson had fought in this environment before, and he knew every angle, every sightline. We need to move, he said, already packing his equipment. They will try to surround us. They flowed through the marketplace like shadows, using the chaos and smoke to mask their movements. Zara proved to be an excellent partner, anticipating his needs and covering his blind spots without being asked. Her diplomatic training had clearly included extensive combat instruction, but more than that, she seemed to understand his tactical thinking instinctively. The corridor to the left, she whispered, pointing toward a narrow passage between stalls. It leads to the central hub. Jackson nodded, but as they moved toward the passage, Commander Thane stepped into their path. The massive Krillian had removed his helmet, revealing scales scarred by countless battles and eyes that burned with hatred. His weapon was trained directly on Zara. Enough games, Ghostwalker, he hissed. You have taken everything from me. My brothers, my honor, my reason for living. Now I will take everything from you. Let her go, Thane, Jackson said, his voice steady despite the weapon pointed at the woman he loved. Your quarrel is with me. Oh, but it is so much more satisfying this way, the Krillian commander replied. You will watch her die, just as I watched my brothers die, and then I will kill you slowly, savoring every moment. You made one mistake, Jackson said quietly. And what is that? You assumed I was the only one with